Everybody loves a good DIY project. There's things that you can handle, there's things that you should not be touching and you should leave to the professionals. I'm Will, the home detective guy. Let's take a closer look. Every homeowner has wrestled with the thought of doing something on their own because they want to save money. But there's certain things that you really shouldn't do on your own. Wood stove installation, you should really let the professionals take care of. What the homeowner did was they didn't use the right screws to install the flue pipe, so the flue pipe is literally just falling off. This is a very dangerous scenario when there's a fire going in your wood stove. This needs to be secured properly. The other issue is that the clearance to combustibles should be about 18 inches, and if it's not, sometimes you got to use an air gap in a cement non-combustible material like this, which they at least tried to do, but it's not installed. It's just falling all over the place. So, and all the wood around it is obviously combustible. So you want to have this installed properly so you don't burn your house down. I got to show you this. So this is a ventless fireplace, which means that it doesn't have a vent to vent out the gas fumes after it's burning, which is a safety issue in itself, because if this malfunctions and it's burning poorly, it's going to dump carbon monoxide into the house and possibly kill its occupants, right? So that's not safe. We never recommend having a ventless stove like this unless you're in like an old camper that's super breezy, or if it's a really large exterior room. That's a perfect place for these, not in a living space like it is installed right now. And if you're going to use something like this in the proper location, you probably want to use something better than stacked up DVDs to hold it in place. All right, so check this one out. Super common issue that I find in many houses is dirty stoves, gas-fired stoves like this. So we've got burning ports at the top here for your stove top that push gas out of them and make your flame, right? So these burning ports should be clean. If they're not clean, you'll see tall yellow flames. If you see tall yellow flames, you're probably putting off carbon monoxide also, because that's what happens when you burn gas poorly. So the simplest thing to do is to just make sure that this oven top stays nice and clean and you have nice short bluish type of flames. So right under the bottom plate of your oven is where your burners are for the oven. And what can happen, and what does happen, is that carbon deposits build up on the bottom side of that. So when you turn on your oven and it's burning, if there's too much carbon deposits there, you're putting off a lot of carbon monoxide. In many cases, over 200 parts per million, which is still, you're still gonna get carbon monoxide poisoning. Might not be enough to kill you, but it's still not a safe amount of carbon monoxide. You won't even realize it until you get a headache or something like that. So make sure you got these clean, make sure the oven's clean, and make sure you've got a nice carbon monoxide detector someplace close by when you have a gas oven like this. You've got a microwave hood here over the gas-fired stove. And this microwave hood is basically recirculating air. It sucks it through the bottom and blows it out the face. So when you have a poorly burning gas appliance, like a dirty stove that's putting off carbon monoxide, where do you think the carbon monoxide is going? It's just going and blowing back in your face. The best scenario in any situation when you have a gas-fired stove is to have your vented hood actually vent outside. And most of these microwave hoods that you can buy nowadays come where you can do either one. You can have it blow in your face, which in my opinion is super silly, or you can have it vent outside, which is going to be the better option every time. So do yourself a favor and have your microwave hood over your gas-fired stove vented outside. So have you ever seen brown, orange stains coming out of your faucets or on your shower? If you look at this, you can see a really extreme version of this issue. And what this issue is iron and manganese in the well water. Iron and manganese basically make the water taste funny, mineral-like, because iron tastes funny, right? But it also makes everything orange and brown. It stains everything that it touches, especially if it's in high amounts in your water. So all of this stuff can be cleaned, but it can also be taken out of your water by installing like a water softener. There's treatment for those type of things to make this not be such a big problem. So another thing homeowners should not be messing with is their electric panel. The homeowner here felt obligated to run their own wiring. You can't even install the cover plate to this panel anymore because the wiring is running out the face. I think this goes to a generator plug or probably something like that. I see this kind of Yankee ingenuity everywhere I go. And it's not safe. There's all kinds of other issues going on. There's holes in the panel that shouldn't be there. There's double lug circuits. There's a bunch of new circuits that looks like the homeowner decided to run on their own. There's a reason why you have a licensed electrician take care of this stuff, because circuit wires need to be the right size, the breakers need to be the right size, the connections need to be made properly. All of these things, if done wrong, can burn your house down. It's not worth doing it on your own if your house is going to be a burnt crisp, right? So don't get into the electric panel, call a professional. All right, check this out. This is a super common issue that I see in almost every house, even really fancy, nice houses. The missing cover plate at this receptacle. Most people think that having that missing, all it's doing is just making it a little dangerous for maybe your kids sticking their fingers inside and electrocuting themselves. But really, the main intention of that cover plate is to keep sparks from flying out of them in case there's an arc flash, an issue with the receptacle connections. That arc flash is what burns people's houses down. So if you don't have that cover plate there, those sparks can come out of that receptacle. So all you got to do is make sure you've got cover plates on all your receptacles. Super easy, and all it costs is like 95 cents or less at Home Depot. So super easy fix. Whenever you have an exterior receptacle, it should be GFCI protected. What GFCI stands for is ground fault circuit interrupter. Basically anywhere where you have a wet location and electricity, it's safer to have a GFCI. So in this scenario, we have a GFCI receptacle, which is great, except for if you look at this moisture staining, this receptacle is probably getting wet as well as the wiring behind the wall and inside that box. What it should be is a exterior weatherproof receptacle and box, which would be great because it's going to protect that wiring inside as well. Or the other option would be to make sure that this entire circuit is actually protected by a GFCI breaker, which would also make this safer in case moisture happens to get into that wiring. Brick foundations and cinder block foundations like this one here, they have mortar joints that are holding the blocks together. It's locking them together. And that mortar deteriorates over time. That's what it does. And if you don't keep it maintained and have new mortar put back in those joints, it can cause separation in between the blocks, cause sagging and dropping and movement, all kinds of stuff that you don't want to see happen to a foundation. Super common issue, and a super easy maintenance task is to just make sure that that mortar stays intact. All right, another super common issue that we find is splash zone issues. I've talked about this before. You can see more about that in our moisture problem video. But basically, rain is splashing off the roof, hitting here and soaking things and causing wood rot all over the place. It's getting pretty nasty. So if you come real close, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So first of all, this set of stairs should be attached so that it's not wiggling around and causing people to trip. But if you look under here, you can see the sill is gone. It's just rotted away. You can see the top of the foundation. And water is just splashing every time it rains and working its way into anything that it can find, any hole it can find, and making a real nasty mess. And the mice have been loving it too. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's carpenter ants in there. Also, inside the door, you can see the floor is rotted out in the past. The homeowner filled it full of spray foam as a temporary fix, but it's not doing the job. You can see a hole here. Rodents have chewed through it too. It's rotted out and squishy. You can put your foot right through the floor, and it's all because of that continual rain splashing off this area and working moisture into places you don't want it to be. All you got to do is put some gutters or rain diverter at a minimum above this area to keep that splash zone issue at bay. Let's talk about wood decks, specifically wood decks that are built into the ground like this one. First of all, if you're going to do a wood deck in the ground like this, you should think about using a paver patio instead. Paver patio done right is going to last a long time. unlike this wood deck that's obviously rotting apart. It looks like they use pressure-treated lumber, but pressure-treated lumber isn't what it used to be. We took out all the really good stuff because it's not healthy for people. So they just don't last as long as they used to. But it's sitting so close to the ground, on the ground in this situation, soaking up that moisture from the ground, is causing it to rot out. So do yourself a favor next time, install a paver patio. Another super common issue that I see in houses with wells is the well cap is not sealed or it's not tightly fit. In this situation, this well cap is not bolted in at all. You see all these bolt holes? Those are supposed to have a bolt that holds this cap onto the well. So this is a super easy area for your water to be contaminated. All it takes is one rodent, one mouse to get close enough to this, maybe even fall inside the well, or just drop a couple of poop drops in there to contaminate and cause bacteria to grow in your well water, which is super nasty. You don't want to be drinking that. So do yourself a favor, call up a well service company or a well installer and say, hey, can you come and reseal the cap of my well? That way you're not drinking bacteria, because that's pretty nasty. If you have a split level house, you'll probably find that your well tank is underneath the stairs. That's a super common place for it to be installed. But what can happen in this area underneath the stairs is that it becomes a damp location because the condensation builds up on the well tank and on the piping because cold water is running through it. And as soon as you get enough condensation dripping on the floor, like here, you can see the wet spot, it allows mold to grow under the stairs in this area. So what you want to do is make sure you have a dehumidifier running someplace close by and try to keep that moisture at bay. All right, you got to look close at this. This is a gas line that's actually live. It probably went to an old gas water heater before it was changed to electric. What they did was they put a ball valve shutoff here so that you could shut it off, and it's off. But all it takes is somebody just nicking this handle, and then you've got gas coming out of it. And if it happened and you didn't realize it, you'd be filling your house full of gas, and you'd be coming home to an explosion. So don't do something as stupid as this. So if your house has a tank for a water heater, like an electric tank like this one, or a gas-fired water heater tank, one of the easiest things and the best maintenance things you can do for these style tanks is to drain the tank out once every 2 years. By doing so, you're going to remove the sediment that builds up in the bottom of these tanks. That sediment is what causes these tanks to rot out. Have you ever noticed that most of the tanks, your water heaters, when they go at the base? That's because of that sediment buildup. So the easiest thing you can do is just drain that sucker out once every 2 years. So if you look at this water tank, you can see there's a copper fitting here that's installed into the steel water tank here. This copper and steel connection can cause a galvanic reaction. What happens is the copper is basically being a bully and stealing the lunch money. No, stealing electrons from the steel, which causes the steel to degrade. And what happens after it degrades enough? It starts to leak. And once this fitting here rusts out and corrodes enough, you've got to replace your tank. So what should be installed here is not a copper fitting, but a dielectric union, which would prevent those dissimilar metals from being in contact, which would prevent that galvanic reaction, which is going to save you the life of your water heater. Chimneys. They should all have a rain cap. Many of them don't, but if yours doesn't, you should really think about having a rain cap installed. Do yourself a favor, walk down into your basement, wherever your clean out happens to be in the bottom of your chimney. Usually it's in the basement, someplace next to the chimney. If you see water staining coming out of it, that's because you don't have a rain cap, most likely. And that every time it rains, the moisture falls through. And it gets all the way down and ends up coming out in places. In this scenario, it's coming out and causing moisture issues in the framing and all over the place. But what it's also going to do is cause moisture issues at the top of the chimney. Water starts getting into places it shouldn't be up there, especially in the wintertime. Freezes, causes the mortar materials, if it's a brick chimney, to deteriorate and fall apart. And when it freezes, it pushes things apart. It causes a real mess. And all you needed to do is just have a simple rain cap installed. I'm all for learning new things and trying new things when it comes to renovation in your own house. But there's certain things that you shouldn't be attempting because it's a safety issue, or it's something that's just not going to last long term, and you're going to be paying someone to do it anyways. So it's up to you to figure out when it's safe for you to attempt something new and when it's safe to have a professional take care of it. So take all those things into consideration before you attempt your own do-it-yourself project. I love helping you all out, so I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel so that you can see more helpful tips about your home.